So, my name is Thorny Prince Taylor II, and my partner was Mr. Michael White. Our topic that we came up with was the Industrial Revolution leading to mainstream cremation. And I know it doesn't seem as if that is feasible or how that correlates together, but it does, so stay with me. The Industrial Revolution hits London in the early 1800s. What you have is small-town London being the major metropolitan city, being the hub of this Industrial Revolution movement. And so due to the development of better farming equipment, people were leaving just a few people on the farms in the surrounding towns and coming into the city to get higher paying jobs and to make a better life for their family by working in the workhouses, which were the facilities that were creating tools and different industrial items that were perpetuating or propelling the Industrial Revolution. Due to the surge of people coming out of the city or into the city's population increased dramatically. Like overnight, these people flood in, and the infrastructure of the little city of London, or the city of London, it couldn't maintain such a vast or abrupt switch in town to this massive amount of people, trying to support this massive amount of people. And so what we have is all these people that are working in the workhouses, instead of staying in their own apartment, they're staying in maybe one room in an apartment with their entire family. And so, of course, that leads to poor health conditions, okay? Due to the poor living conditions, because these people are in crammed spaces and having to dispose of waste locally, disease starts to break out. And there were more people dying in the city of London than were being born. And so that was very, very dramatic, because you think that doesn't make sense, but it does, because so many people were flooding into the city that more people were dying than were being born. So this is when our first hero, in 1831, Dr. John Snow, starts to work on the first big outbreak. Okay, and the first outbreak that occurred was an outbreak of cholera. And this is where you see the development of really what I would consider the first epidemiologist. Dr. John Snow started immediately looking at the surrounding area and looking who was affected by cholera and who wasn't affected by cholera. What he narrowed everything down to was that this cholera outbreak really was just in the area of Broad Street. He discovered that after interviewing different people that were sick, people that didn't get sick at all, what he discovered was everything was connected to the Broad Street pump. And this is where people would pump water to get fresh water to drink. What John Snow discovered was that people were disposing of waste after being sick with cholera, or maybe a couple of family members being sick with cholera, were disposing of waste in the cesspools right outside of the apartment complexes where they were living, or the complexes where they were staying, and the disease was seeping from the cesspools into the water table. Okay, so it was coming back, it was being reintroduced to them through the fresh water pump, or what they thought was fresh water. Okay, and at this time, during this outbreak that Dr. John Snow was looking at, 600 people died in 1 week. So it was a major problem, and it was enough to get a lot of people's attention, and Dr. John Snow was bound to solve the problem. And so he did. He said, listen, there's a group of people that didn't get sick. I found a group of people that live on Broad Street that didn't get sick, and it's people that work in a certain workhouse that is 3 blocks over, and they got fresh water from that pump. And also, there was a group of people that didn't get sick, but they all work at the brewery, so they're drinking more beer than water. He said, so if we remove the handle of the Broad Street pump, then nobody will get sick from cholera being reintroduced to their environment. Now, while Dr. John Snow is doing this vast work, you have our next hero, which is Sir Edwin Chadwick. He was the secretary to the commission, which oversaw the workhouses in London. So once again, you see how the workhouses and his role is correlating kind of with what Dr. John Snow is already doing. And mind you, it's happening at the same time. Okay. With the assistance of Dr. Snow's work, Sir Chadwick developed a theory about the spread of disease in London. And with his position in the government, he's telling his buddies in the government, he said, hey, we got to do something. I'm over all these people in the workhouses, and these people are getting sick. And when they get sick and can't support the workhouses, they're being stuck at home making other people sick, and then we're having to use taxpayer money to try to support the sick and the elderly and the dying, and all these people are dying in the streets, and our cemeteries are being flooded and overrun with bodies because there's only so many spaces in the cemetery, in the churchyard cemetery. He said, so I have to do something. So they said, okay, Chadwick, we need you to write up a report to solve this problem. Now, mind you, Chadwick does. He does a great job. In 1884, he presents the report, and the report is called The Sanitary Conditions of the Laboring Population. This starts the sanitary movement, okay? Because Chadwick takes John Snow's work, and he takes some of his own ideals, and he realizes that, hey, there are some things that we have to do to make things more sanitary, because if things are more sanitary, people won't die, people won't get sick, people will be able to continue to work, and we will thrive. 3 key points from Sir Chadwick's report was, number 1, all citizens need access to clean, fresh drinking water. Ding, ding, ding. Dr. Snow discovered that with the cholera outbreak. That's why he removed the handle from the Broad Street pump. Number 2, all citizens need access to proper sewage removal from their homes and streets. The cesspools spreading cholera. And once again, even after Dr. Snow alleviated the first cholera outbreak, there was later in the 1830s, there was another cholera outbreak. So Chadwick knew we have to get these things under control, or else this is going to be a cycle that continues until maybe none of us make it. And then number 3 was all villages need access to a doctor. Not just London, but the surrounding towns need access to some type of medical professional. So clean drinking water, proper sewage removal, and access to medical professional. And that proper sewage removal later happens in the future. They pretty much dug up major portions of London and developed an actual sewer system, moving the sewage away from the water table. And actually, to this day, there are areas of the sewage system in London that were developed because of Sir Chadwick's plan. Now, remember I say that, with Dr. Snow, even just the 1 week he was dealing with the cholera outbreak and trying to solve that problem, 600 people died. Sir Chadwick, being an official of the government, is having to deal with, what do we do now if we get rid of the sewage problem in the homes, we get fresh, clean drinking water, get them medical help, we still have a problem of a large number of decedents in the city. In one of the essays I read, they quoted someone saying that the smell from the cemetery was far worse than the cesspool. Now, mind you, the cesspool is nothing but human waste. So, they ran out of space. And Sir Chadwick is then, after with the sanitation movement, he's tasked with developing a system to dispose of the dead. And he starts with disposing of the dead outside the city limits. But mind you, at the time, people weren't being buried in containers. And so he starts burying people outside the city limits. That gets the decedents out of the churchyard cemetery, out of the city limits, trying to move them away from the water table. Okay, but we still have a problem with it affecting the water table. So then he starts talking about, well, we need to start burying them in containers, in some type of container. But that led to him eventually saying, you know what, that's still not effective enough. The disease is still breaking down in the caskets and seeping into the ground. He said the only way to fix this problem is if we get rid of the bodies by cremation. Now, at this time, people were very hesitant. It was seen more of a pagan or savage thing to do to cremate. So Sir Chadwick is trying to change the mindset of the great people of London, and he does. He does, because he's like, guys, if we cremate, what ends up happening is the infestation or the disease is no longer a problem. It's gone. It's with extreme heat comes sanitation. And so with the movement towards cremation and making it popular, you see the development of what was Golders Green Crematorium and Mausoleum, and this would have never existed. This would have never existed without the work first of Dr. John Snow, then the incredible work of Sir Edwin Chadwick, which created a ideology or a theory that if we cremate bodies, we can save people's lives, and it worked. It worked. And so that's it. That's how the Industrial Revolution led to cremation becoming mainstream. Thank you so much. I'm Thorny Prince Taylor. My partner is Mr. Michael White, and we appreciate your time.